far left now.
That's my job.
Yeah. I'm going to leave that one alone.
Maybe I do need to relocate.
Dennis, you're losing control.
It's gone.
Well, you ever had it?
I am Dennis Heisey, El Paso County Commissioner.
Tyler Stevens, Town of Green Mountain Falls.
Mark Snyder, Mayor, Manitou Springs.
Jim Mall. Joel Miller, Colorado Springs City Council.
Buck Cakes, Mayor Victor.
Mark Welby, Park County Commissioner.
Darrell Glenn, El Paso County Commissioner.
Keith McCafferty, Mayor, Town of Rainbow.
Wayne Williams, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder.
Travis Easton, Mayor Monument.
Colonel Rich Fogg, United States Air Force Academy.
Colonel Bill LaCorey, 50th Space Wing at Schriever Air Force Base.
Okay, John Shaw, 21st Space Wing at Peterson Air Force Base.
Jim Moore, Military Affairs Council.
Tom Rona, CDOT Region 2 Director.
Jen Thompson, Fountain City Council.
Ron Chisholm, Deputy Garrison Commander, Fort Carson.
Dave Turley, Mayor Woodland Park.
Norm Steen, Teller County Commissioner.
Danny Pico, Colorado Springs City Council.
Rich?
Rich Mosby, Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, Environmental Program Manager.
I'm Bill Gamble, the Chair of the REC, Regional Advisory Committee.
Tom Casawara, Town Monument, Chair of the TAC.
Victoria Chavez, El Paso County.
Kathleen Krager, Colorado Springs.
Michael Snow, CDOT, MPO Regional Planning Liaison. Doug Wallace.
Mickey Groves.
Pettit, CDOT Region 2.
Got rid of Dave. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm just visitor Carl Ripple.
Craig Lewis, City Colorado Springs, Mountain Metropolitan Transit.
Richard Marcus, City Colorado Springs, Mountain Metro Transit.
Gail Nels, Amblacap.
Jeff Bond, Peterson Air Force Base, Public Affairs.
Alethea Smart, Peterson Air Force Base, Public Affairs.
Mark Pfeiffer, Coral Springs Utilities, and I'm your Water Quality Control Commissioner for the Arkansas base.
Kim Matthews, PPACG, Area Agency on Aging.
Angel Bond, PPACG.
Mike Silvera, PPACG. Mark Andrews, CDOT Region 2. Dave Watt, CDOT Region 2.
And we missed some folks over there.
Impact Federal Action Coalition.
Lisa Sulaco, staff.
Rich Butcher, Worth Patrol Shop.
Bob Baker, CAC Chairman.
Craig Casper, Transportation Director, PPACG.
Jason Walken, the Policy and Communications Manager, PPACG.
Carl?
Carl Schuler, City Colorado Springs.
Okay. Thank you. Any changes to the agenda? We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. This would be your time to bring anything before this board that you would like to talk to us about that is not on today's agenda. Anyone have anything? Sometimes we get that from board members. Okay. Item number 4 would be our consent items. We have 2, approval of minutes and membership appointments. Anybody wish to pull either of those off? Do we have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5. 5A is our Executive Director's Report. Rob,
Mr. Chair.
anything you want to highlight?
A few things to highlight today. I think one of them, and I think Bev was in the house. Our auditors are in the building today doing their independent audit of the PPACG. So if they wander down, they want to talk to me or Beverly, you'll understand. I may step aside and talk to them. They're tearing through the books as good independent auditors, so they'll be here all week. It's not a Vegas show, but they do ask us some pretty good questions. They're pretty thorough, and you'll hear from them. The results in May, probably May. So that's one of the things. Other thing in the report that you got in your packet, we accepted the Colorado Association of Regional Organizations to be their fiscal agent. Northwest Council of Governments have been their fiscal agent for the last 3 years. And they're a dues-paying organization, not a lot of dues, but they're the group of councils of governments around the state. We get together twice a year, talk about mutual interest things, and that's a new change. We have it for this year, so I guess we've been volunteered by their board, and I sit on their board, and Commissioner Clark sits on one level of the team, executive oversight. I sit on the project management team. Craig Casper sits on the, let's see, the working team stakeholder. Maybe they're the ones working, I don't know. But they're, CDOT's doing a great job in their consultants of getting that project underway and moving forward. Of course, a $100 million project takes a lot of work. So I think we've got that covered pretty well from the board level on down to staff and probably dozens of other folks are on those committees. The last thing I want to highlight, in front of you on the table, we have the yellow book for the Area Agency on Aging. This is fresh out of the printers. You have the first copies. And so this is the directory of all 3 counties' senior services. I won't pick on a lot of them, but you can still smell the glue. It's pretty good. So if anyone passes out at the table, get more coffee.
Sit them down in Manitou.
Yeah. When they come in by the cage, we have to air them out a little bit. It's just a strange aroma. But take this with you. Please share it and let us know if you need more copies. But we'll be doing a distribution of the approximately 30,000 of these that are still being printed out. But this is the first wave. All over the place. These are you're part of the first 50 of them. And so enjoy the read. Any questions, typos?
So how do are you just going to deliver them, or?
Yes, we have a delivery that'll be happening over the next couple weeks, months as they come in, and we usually get them in a couple waves. But they should be hitting the shelves, and we'll pick up the 2013 versions and replace them with these.
You don't have the commissioners deliver 30,000 of them?
Aren't you going to distribute all those 30 up?
We are, yeah.
That would be 30.
And then it flows downhill.
That's right. That's right. Send them down Fountain Creek.
Wayne Williams.
Rob, are those on, are the clerk and recorder's offices on the distribution list for that? Because we have about 500,000 in-person customers every year, and that might be and I don't recall seeing large numbers of those, so.
They go pretty quick. I'll double check. I think the county gets them in a few spots.
Okay.
I don't recall offhand if clerk and recorder is the other.
Okay, thanks.
That's it. 5B, Transportation Advisory Committee. Tom?
Good morning. At our January meeting, we had election of officers, and unfortunately you have to deal with me for another year because they appointed the same people. So that was approved unanimously. We talked about the goals and performance measures for the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan and made some minor changes to the language in Goal 6, Goal 10, and Goal 12, which you'll probably see reflected in your agenda. We also had a presentation from Emily Lindsay of PPACG staff on the draft 2040 small area forecast, and we unanimously recommended that for approval to the board. And that was a pretty short meeting, too, so I must be doing my job.
Questions? Comments? Thank you. Next is our Community Advisory Committee.
Good morning. I'm Bob Baker, Chairman of the CAC. I was not at this meeting, but I'm here to report, so don't blame me for anything that goes on. All right?
So you're really not looking for questions?
Yes. First of all, thank you for approving Alan Creeley and Roger Armstrong. Really for reappointment after a period of time. They've been there before, and they're very welcome because they'll hit the ground running. The CAC reviewed and recommends the approval of the 2040 small area forecast. There was some discussion. There were questions about population forecasts, which were resolved by staff. They then reviewed the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan, where there was substantial discussion about goal number 12. Everything else was fine. It is approved with the insertion by the CAC of a metric that pertains to basically a metric of runoff and the percent of new transportation-related impervious surface area treated. We have a member that was very strong in her conviction concerning this, that it was a more specific measurement than what we had in the specific goal before. I called her to get a very concise statement of why she felt so strongly. This discussion went on for 45 minutes. And she, in quotes, although we know that any construction involving federal funds must treat 100% of the additional impervious area created, this performance measure will encourage the treatment of existing impervious area, resulting in a score of over 100%. I don't know how you get over 100%, but that was her thesis. And as a result, the committee did vote approval unanimously for the plan with that insertion. So I don't think I'm capable of answering any questions, but I'll try. I've talked with staff also. I spent some time with Brian concerning this, and he understands that there was a disagreement with the way it was originally presented in that particular goal, number 12.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our Regional Advisory Council, Bill Gamble.
Good morning. I was at my meeting, but I'd like to echo what Baker said. Don't blame me for anything that. Plenty of blame to go around. We had our meeting on January 30th, and a couple of things I'd like to mention to you. I told you last year that we were receiving reports from our providers, not only in one day as we've done in previous years, but we're stretching it out throughout the year. And that's occurring, and it's going very well. We had several presentations on January 30th, a couple that you'll be hearing more about. The Innovation in Aging, great presentation that's sponsored by Peak Vista Community Health Centers, jointly commissioned by them. And we had our assessment from the State Area Unit on Aging, which received very favorable comments, especially about volunteers that we have with AAA. We want to thank you for approving our new members. We have 4 new members on our board now, and that's just enhances our capability to serve as we do in our community. Senior Day is coming up in April at the state capitol, so you'll hear more about that, and that's essentially my report.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
5E would be our Arkansas Fountain Coalition for Urban River Evaluation.
The longest acronym of any committee here at PPACG. AFCURE met on February 4th, right before the board packet out, so I apologize I did not have time to go ahead and include an overview of that meeting in your packet. The group talked about the nutrients data collection effort that is going on by all the entities and the format and template that data needs to be in. Talked about dues and funding for 2014. Colorado Springs Utilities staff gave a presentation on some temperature sampling that they're doing there, and the results. The sampling was done on Fountain Creek and Monument Creek, and the group talked about additional temperature sampling that needs to be done. Talked about the AFCURE white paper. The white paper is being developed by AFCURE members to discuss issues and challenges regarding water quality in the future. It's broken down into different issue areas: nutrients, E. coli, selenium, and temperature, and other issue areas. And that was pretty much the meeting. Are there any questions?
Questions? Thanks, Rich.
Thanks.
And as was requested at the January meeting, we have representatives here from the Colorado Springs Regional Business Alliance reporting on the Strategic Coalition for Federal Action, now renamed as IMPACT, without the I. Scott Bryan and Stephanie Finley, thank you very much.
Good morning. Scott Bryan, I'm CEO of Bryan Construction, but I'm here to represent IMPACT, it's the Pikes Peak Federal Action Coalition. We're not really with the Business Alliance, so.
You know, I kind of realized that as I was reading that.
The Business Alliance, though, happens to be one of the members of IMPACT. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for your leadership and membership into the coalition. For some of you that don't know exactly what this is, I'll give you a little background on it. It is really a public-private partnership group that came together to hire a lobbyist in D.C. to represent issues that concern our community, and also go after any strategic funds that would be available to support our community in efforts in endeavors that the community wishes to go after. I'm the founder, or one of the founders of the coalition. I started it when I was the chair of the Economic Development Corporation here. And I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of how it started and the little story how it started. I do a lot of work for the federal government, and I was looking at federal biz ops, and I saw a project in there for $2 billion for a data center in Utah. And it went, got my attention. It was a rather large job. I started looking through it, and I looked at the specs on it, and it almost mirrored exactly the Intel building that we had empty out on Garden of the Gods Road. And so I went, why don't we throw our hat in the ring here with this Intel building and see if we can't get in play? And why would they need to build a new facility when we really have the facility here? And we could deliver it for a tenth of the price and probably 2 years early. So I couldn't get any answers, and I went out to Washington D.C. with the 30 group, and which is a group of individuals, businessmen from the state, and met with the entire delegation and everybody in the state delegation. And I brought it up, and nobody knew anything about it. And they said, "Well, we'll get back to you. We'll check into it. It's the usual." So, come to find out, we did a little research. It was a insert that Orrin Hatch had put in a bill, and they all voted on it, believe it or not, but nobody knew anything about it. And so I was chatting with Lon Matejzik with the Business Journal, and I said, we got to do something about that. We got to get some representation in D.C. that we can really, have there full time, and we need a lobbyist. And so Lon wrote an article, said all I want for Christmas is a D.C. lobbyist, and then a couple lobbyists answered that, and we started talking to them, and the next thing you know, we grew this coalition. And I tell you, I think it's been a wonderful thing to do. And my only regret is that we didn't do it earlier. because right after we formed it, then the spigot was shut off. But nevertheless, a lot of other competing cities have a lobbyist, and they pay for them. Aurora is a good example of it. Aurora, through the stimulus funds, paid for the entire interchange at the Anschutz Medical Campus there on 225. Of course, a lot of our competing cities that we compete with in Alabama, in Nebraska, Omaha, Huntsville, they all do it. They all have it. Okay. And when we have such an impact on with the federal government and 5 bases here, it only makes sense. The neat thing about this, though, it's one of the first ever to be a coalition of public-private partnerships. So, not this. So we've come together. I think we have 12 members now, and you folks are one of them, and we certainly appreciate that. I know that Wayne's been involved a lot, Sally. It's been a real treat. But just to go through some of the stuff that we've accomplished, I'd say probably the largest thing that we accomplished was the monies that were received for the fire recovery and mitigation and the water quality stuff. And those monies that we went after, not only for El Paso County, but also for other communities in the state, made a big impact. They amounted to, what, $30 million?
Well, the first was $19 million, and Commissioner Clark tells us it's up to 30
Well,
or 50.
if we combine what CDOT spent and all of us, it's probably close to $4 million at this point, but that's all the entities that have.
But the coalition was very responsible for the
19 million for Colorado.
Right. So, I mean, it's $100,000 to hire this firm. Melman, Vogel, and Casanetti, I think they're the best firm in D.C. I don't think we could have done any better than that. We also use them for our D.C. trip when we go out there. They set up all the meetings with the staff members and everything. The key is getting to the staff members to really make things happen. But I'd say, $30 million on a $100,000 investment is a pretty good return. So, and I've received several comments from some of the delegation. Senator Michael Bennett, when it came up to me and said, this is a really great thing that you guys are doing down in Colorado Springs, and it's made you very relevant. You're in play, and that's the deal. And so we've made a statement with the state, just in as a result of this flood mitigation money that we received. I didn't want to drag anything on. Just wanted to thank you for your leadership and your role that you play in the coalition. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any questions. If not, just wanted to give you that little bit of update. Thank you.
Well, Scott, before you, we can't let you off that easy.
No.
I know early on, Jim Ignatius, former Teller County Commissioner, was showing up and beating the drum for forest health issues, and of course those were not, this was before fires, those were not our issues down here in El Paso County. And he kept saying, no, really, they're talking about this in D.C., and our lobbyist confirmed that what they're talking about in D.C. is what we need to be talking about, because that's where the money's going to go. And through their help, we were able to get some forest health money, which was used in I think probably Teller County. I don't know if it was used in Park or not, but it was a conduit he wouldn't have had without the PPACG connection. So.
Well, may I speak to that?
Sure.
My name is Stephanie Finley, and I help with the coalition. And that was exactly what I was going to say.
Fine.
Is that no? I wanted to thank PPACG for bringing that to our attention, because Commissioner Ignatius did talked to us about that and sent us down that path. But the other thing I wanted to say was to Commissioners Clark and Heisey, thank you for your leadership with the coalition. It makes a huge difference. And also Colorado Springs Utilities has been a key player in this as well. And so thank you for that individual leadership that's really played an important role.
Mr. Clark?
It's hard sometimes to see when we get the budget line item for paying into this, what we're getting out of it. And it's when you pay into a group and you have to pare down because we've got so many issues we want to talk about. It's really important that we strategically go after certain components. And the lobbyist has allowed us on issues like emergency watershed protection, which has been so important to our region as it relates to recovery from Waldo Canyon fire and flood protection, that we were able to consistently have conference calls. I think we went almost 2 weeks, as I remember, almost every weekday we were getting updates from Elise and trying to work with our delegation members on strategies, and even those who aren't in our direct delegation but are part of Colorado's delegation. I looked at Corey Gardner and Jared Polis, actually, who were dealing with the Larimer County and High Park fire. It really pulled us together with one message. Accelerate Colorado, which is in the Aurora area, does a very similar thing with a joint lobbying effort. But being able to have that connection directly to D.C. has made a difference. It's made a difference on transportation as well, our ability to talk to the folks in D.C. who, frankly, didn't realize what was happening with the previous transportation bill, which now is called MAP 21, which is up for another renewal in September, I believe, and so it's constant. It doesn't go away, and the important thing about impact and working together is that we've really made a name for ourselves, so that when we call, they take our calls and they recognize that we're relevant to the discussion, and they do listen. Whether or not they vote for us all the time, vote for our things, is a whole different matter. But I do think that it's really helped our communications. So, and Stephanie said she's kind of, as a sideline, she has been the focus of the person who really moved us forward and moved the needle on this, and then has stuck with it, even with a change of positions of where you are now. So you need to take a lot of credit, too, on that. But PPACG's continued support for this is critical to all of us who sit around our table, and it's dealt with in a very regional perspective. It's not just about Colorado Springs. It's not just about El Paso County. We take Teller and Park and actually our whole state we keep in mind as to how we build those coalitions to help ourselves, because when we help, the high tides float all boats, and that's the way we have approached it.
And are you in charge?
We were debating that before you got here, but
to whom do I seek permission to speak is my question, Commissioner. As a former chief of staff on Capitol Hill and the president of Mayor Easton's fan club, I might add, because he is my mayor, I just wanted to very quickly underscore what Commissioner Clark is saying. With the EPW money, we were this close to losing it, and it's because of Elise, our lobbyist with Melman Vogel. She had hired, oh, hi, Wayne Williams. You're very instrumental in this as well. I didn't see you sitting over there.
It's hard to miss.
Yes, Mr. Red, White, and Blue. I love it. Yeah.
Dress brighter next time.
Well, you've been very instrumental in the coalition, so I didn't want to lose that thought. But Elise hired Corey Gardner's legislative director, and we were about to lose the money, and she went into Congressman Gardner's office, spoke to Natalie, got them engaged in it, and as Commissioner Clark knows, because she worked this like crazy, Corey Gardner is the one on the House side that saved the day. And he's the one who got the speaker to commit to funding it when it was about to go on the wayside. And then Senator Bennett actually used he had just gotten a very important designation with the Senate, and he used that to leverage the money, and only because we worked it like crazy. So if you wonder about your $10,000 and if it's worth it, please know it was very worth it with that. So thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate it. And thanks to Scott Bryan for his leadership.
And I want to just comment, it wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Stephanie. And
You guys are
Stephanie
too
is the
kind.
glue that holds this organization together. So,
But that's not relevant to this discussion.
Before you leave the mic, Clerk and Recorder Williams.
Why don't you take them and I'll go last?
Okay, we'll start over here and work our way around.
Appreciate the presentation, and thanks for coming and providing this information. I think the reason it came up last time is it had been approved through the budgeting process, but then there was a request sort of post facto for the budget for the amount that it was already allocated. I think that was kind of what happened.
That's a fair description.
And I think one of the questions was, is there any sort of stakeholder meeting in which the issues can be prioritized by the stakeholders who are putting into it, or is it just sort of a go and I think it was not a critique per se of not giving the money, and certainly we have the funds coming back to show as a good investment, but it's more of a question of how are the issues prioritized so that the stakeholders have some sort of say in what issues are going to be addressed, and they have knowledge of what issues are going to be addressed and pushed. And I think that was the question that came up last time, at least that's what I recall the questions centered around.
So I'd be happy to answer. Does your question tag team on that?
It does.
Okay.
It has to do with parking teller in the more rural areas and PILT funding, and whether this is an issue that's being pushed forward on this agenda or not, because like you just said, I don't know if any of that money made it up to Park County or not, and we rely on PILT funds in the rural counties, and if we don't have those funds, we don't have any money. We don't have any money for anything. So all our money is already budgeted, and that's the only extra money.
So may I answer it and then leave it to you? It is a very collaborative process, and in all the 3 years we've done this, I've never seen a ruckus. They come to the table.
I don't go there.
Well, we always invite ruckuses. We don't mind them. But we have a lot of discussions with the stakeholders, and anytime an issue is brought forward, there is very serious consideration of those issues, and rarely is something turned down, because it really does rise to the top when you all bring it to us. And with Commissioner Ignatius, he very well represented Teller and Park. And so I would just encourage you all, Councilmember Miller, we'd love to have you come to a meeting and talk about priorities and be part of the conversation.
And if I might, Mark, to answer your question with regard to payment in lieu of taxes, as you know, it's been National Association of Counties' #1 issue that we've been working on diligently. As part of that, about every week, if not sometimes more on certain issues, we have conference calls where we call in and we talk to Elise and our lobbyists back in D.C., and PILT was one of those that you can be assured that I try and figure out not only what's important to El Paso, but our partners that have different rural issues. In fact, I talked directly to Lamborn's office with regard to PILT. It didn't result in him voting for it, but that's a whole nother issue. Yeah, we support you, but yeah.
It's all pork.
But be assured that I had that conversation anyway. I just want to let you know that we try and keep that in mind, but I appreciate the question by, or the suggestion by Councilman Miller, because I think that gives us an idea of maybe how to have a session, a roundtable discussion with PPACG board to line out maybe some stuff we didn't think about as we move forward with this year's with this year's priorities. So
Yeah, if I could just follow up, I think it would be helpful from a transparency standpoint, when we're funding an organization, I think it's great, but I think there should be some sort of, report to the public, whether there's minutes of these meetings or something that's available to say, these are the priorities that this group has established and plans to address. I don't criticize any of the things that have been addressed, but again, it's just coming back to the public when it's publicly funded. So that's my issue. So hopefully we can come to some sort of or at least get a report back. I think that would be useful.
And we do an annual report. We had an annual breakfast, I think it was, last year. We'll have another one. Anybody's welcome to ask questions, and if you all want to report. I don't get paid to do any of this, so
None of us do.
I know, no kidding, neither do you. But the chancellor is very kind and allows me to do this based on my experience, but we'll figure out you all have no problems getting your reports because you're there. You all participate fully in it. So I think it's helpful if your own representative reports back, and Mayor Stevens is hi, there you are, Trustee Stevens. I should have known that. I just typed that out yesterday. So, and I saw you had a question as well.
Well, I was just going to comment that I am the designated representative, and it is important to hear of these priorities that are established if there are particular things that PPACG needs to be emphasizing, and so I can carry that voice forward to the Impact Coalition. I was unable to make the meeting last week. I was on an airplane, so I look forward to the next meeting. But.
And I am curious why you rejected the title mayor so quickly.
You shouldn't be curious if you know Green Mountain Falls politics currently.
Clerk and Recorder Williams.
Yeah, just a few years ago when we were setting this up, there was discussion about how do we get everyone in the community involved. And Colorado Springs, the utilities, and El Paso County were willing to step up, but that left out a lot of the governmental organizations. And so the one entity that brings all of those together is the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. And that's why we brought it to this group and said, do you want to be a part of this coalition? Because that's the only ability a town like Monument would have to be a part of this, because they're not going to come up with $10,000 to be their own member of the coalition. And it's one of the reasons why we have always had amongst our representatives specifically from the smaller communities that don't have a separate membership in this organization. But it is the way of bringing that whole community together. And when you look at the purposes of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, consistently transportation has been one of the priorities. And so this report of here's where our priorities are, I think gives us that sense of where we're going. But it is important that the representatives visit back with the organization they represent, because just because something's said at a meeting and Tyler or Travis is there and knows that doesn't necessarily mean that every member of this body instantly knows it. So we need to do internally perhaps a little better job in reporting it. But I think it's critical that this organization continue to be involved, because otherwise you're not going to have that regional impact. And when you look at the things on here, yes, transportation is a specific focus of this group, but the overall economic health of our community is also an important part of it. And that's where those priorities line up. There are other things that aren't on the current priority list that have been discussed. When we look at the future of the Pikes Peak area and how do we ensure the long-term economic vitality. We're the largest community in the country that's not immediately adjacent or doesn't have its own federal courthouse. And so that's one of those things that's on the farther horizon. Fire mitigation wasn't on the initial group of things we looked at when it was set up, but now, obviously, it became a critical priority. So it's a very nimble group that's adjusted, and it has played a significant role, as Stephanie and Scott outlined. So I'm glad we belong to it. What actually triggered it was we were electing at our annual meeting our representatives, and people are going, what is this group that we're electing representatives to? And so, and that's what kind of triggered the request. And so I do very much appreciate the two of you continuing to volunteer and continuing to show up to explain things at your own time, and appreciate both of your involvement in this group and the ability to make it successful. So thanks.
You're welcome. And I just want to stress that it is a regional coalition. So, and this is what brings it together as a regional organization. And I would encourage that you get reports regularly from your representatives, because you know, we go through our list of priorities at every meeting, and some are a little hotter than others. So I encourage it. Thank you very much for your time.
Councilmember Knight.
Yeah, I think in addition to getting reports, as Councilmember Miller said, that brought this up, I think internally we need to be more structured to be able to give inputs too. And so I'd like to see it on our planning calendar, that quarterly, annually, whatever the right period is, we actually do a formal data call of all our members to find out what our priorities are, instead of just getting the reports and saying, oh, that's something I would have been interested in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in.
Look forward to seeing you, Trustee Stevens.
Good.
Schneider.
Using Chair's prerogative here, I'm going to move 7D up to this time slot, since we will be losing our stack member promptly at 10:30.
What? We give them all that time, are you?
Oh, scary. So what do we have on our stack agenda?
Yeah, the stack agenda is actually one of the lighter ones. Let me pull that document up here. And most of you have probably seen the article with respect to Impact 64 that, based on the polling, they decided not to go forward with a ballot issue on transportation. But we've got a report on that and report on what's going on in the legislature. The two that involve money, and therefore the ones that will tend to probably dominate the discussion, are the program distribution and the RPP formula. RPP is the Regional Priorities Program. And there are issues with how funds are allocated amongst the regions, and there are formulas that those are used. And so the initial proposal from STAC was to essentially stay where we've been in the past, because there's not much in the RPP distribution, the Regional Priorities Programs distribution. And one of the discussion items is STAC believes that the RPP program is an important program because it gives regions the abilities to make decisions on their own. And so instead of CDOT saying, well, overall, we think this is the best thing to do, then let's do it. It's instead, RPP says, region, you've got this much money, you make the decision at the local level as to how much, what you want to do with it. And so that discussion is going to be part of the agenda again. Just so that you guys know, one of the discussion items of the last one is twin tunnels. Those of you who have driven up to the mountains recently have noticed that the bore on the eastbound lanes is completed and functioning very well. All the equipment is there. If they continue to do the other bore next year, or this year now that it's 2014, that is a significant cost savings from doing it at a different time, because all the equipment's there. That's an expenditure of significant funds. And there are others around the state. To a certain extent, we're in that same situation with Cimarron. A certain amount has been allocated. Once you've done that, it makes sense to go ahead and complete the project. And so there are some other projects around the state like that. And that's essentially the major discussion items I think we're probably going to be having at STAC. I don't know, Norm, if you've got anything else to add to that.
one of the things we did talk about was quite contentious was the amount of money allocated to the RPP. CDOT staff recommendation was for $10 million to be carried forward for this year. What came up last year was what happens to the $167 million freed up beginning in starting in 2016 and primarily in 2017. This is the transportation transbond funds. The recommendation of the stack, contrary over the tops of the CDOT staff, was to move from $10 million to the full $167 million to be allocated back to RPP. So I think it was a unanimous recommendation of the stack to the Transportation Commission to move from $10 million to $167 million to RPP. That formula has three components. One is lane miles in an area. Second is lane miles traveled, and then thirdly is and then finally lane miles traveled by trucks. So 45, 40, 15. So Dr. Cog had a little bit of issue with one of the TPRs there about whether that formula should continue based on moving from 10 to 150 or 167. So I don't know where that's going to go at this next meeting, if that's up to discussion, but there was a unanimous recommendation last meeting for raising the RPP to that funding level.
Yeah, let me add a little bit to that. I'm trying to debate how much historical stuff. Okay. The $167 million was a strategic projects money. In perhaps our perfect world, that would continue to be strategic projects money, where it goes for new construction, because that's what we need in the Pikes Peak area. The current Transportation Commission is not interested in doing that. And in part because CDOT's overall money is substantially less than it used to be. And so the proposal was just put it all essentially into maintenance. And what we have pushed for and what I pushed for is to say, let's at least give the regions the flexibility, because for some regions like ours, a more pressing need is construction. Frankly, we don't have much. And the downside in the formulas is that they use almost exclusively state highway system miles, lane miles traveled, vehicle miles traveled, and lane miles and truck miles traveled. And the challenge for us is we don't have much in the way of state highways. And so therefore, we don't do very well under the formula. But we will still do better if we have flexibility to use those funds. And so that's what we have pushed, to have that flexibility so that the regions can make that decision as to what's best for them. And there are maintenance needs in the area. There are also construction needs, and letting us make the decision here as opposed to someone in Denver put it all to maintenance and nothing to addressing other needs isn't the way that we want to go, I think.
Yes, Mark.
It's the Central Front Range stack route. When I hear about the tunnels and the bores, in Park County, we are experiencing overflow, excess traffic, and it's phenomenal. With our winter that we're having, and there's so much snow up there, it's a double whammy because more people are coming to ski, and they're facing bad weather conditions. So you have all these cars, and it's like Colorado Springs in rush hour.
Well, Saturday I-70's closed. The only way to get into the mountains is through Park County.
And nothing. All this work's being done on I-70. Increase flow, and then it stops, and then send it all to us with no improvements whatsoever. And I've been bringing it up, Tom.
And we're working on it.
I know, but this is a crazy thing.
We just gained your county. We're working on it.
This is I know, and I know nothing happens overnight, but this is happening to us kind of overnight, and it's something we have to really realize, that when we're the alternate route for I-70, we need some help. That section of 285 24 is pretty good. 285 got a nice improvement on it this summer, a lot of safety and a lot of good improvement flow on it. But then it all flows to Highway 9, and it's all the same. And something has to happen to that section of Highway 9 through Fairplay and Alma. I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
I get excited. Passionate, whatever.
So, Tom, did you want to respond to that?
Well, I'm not quite sure what you respond to. Here? No, I'm on. Okay. Wayne, you did make a good point about the program distribution and RPP and how that's to be allocated. But right now, it's up for discussion as to how that funding and a slight correction. Right now, it's $50 million that's available statewide for RPP, not $10 million. That's the figure that we're working with right now.
Up from last year, right?
Right.
It was 10, now it's 50.
Right.
Pushed increase from 10 to 50, and they agreed.
And the distribution will be under discussion at this STAC meeting and future Transportation Commission meetings. And stay tuned and voice your concerns. And just to let you a little bit, to know a little bit about one of the recommendations, it involves credit for population, not just lane miles and lane miles traveled and trucks. And that would play favorably for the Pikes Peak area.
Sure.
Well, actually, Mark, they're allocating it by region, so it.
Okay, then it would but we're not really, we're Central Front Range, we're not really.
Yeah. Oh, by transportation region is the first allocation.
Oh, okay. So Region 2.
Region 2.
All right.
And here's where it gets kind of crazy as we get into all the numbers. Because Region 2 includes a large population area here, but also some very low population areas throughout Southeast. Well, Park's not low. If you look at Southeast, though, a lot of areas with a lot of lane miles and not many people. And that's the nature of an agricultural community. And so the formulas, and the reason we said at 10 or even 50, it may not make that much sense to fight about the formulas. It doesn't change very much when you add population in for our region overall. If you get sub-allocations, it does. And so that's part of the discussion. And as we go through all of the fund numbers, and STAC always gets more interesting when you're talking about money than when you're just talking about generic programs. And so that's what the major discussion items will be. And as always, everyone is welcome to attend. They are public meetings. And Norm and I and Lisa and whoever else is there will do our very best to represent this area's interests.
Thank you very much. We will move back to our action items now. 2040 Regional Transportation Plan, Goals and Performance Measures. Brian Batuli.
Good morning. Thank you. Brian Batuli with PPACG's Transportation Program. We're asking for your approval of the Goals and Performance Measures for the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan. These will make up part of Chapter 5, our planning framework. The goals and performance measures are used to chronicle or gauge the performance of the transportation system. And the performance measures specifically help us form the basis for the evaluation criteria, which we'll get to in the coming months. Back in November, you released the draft goals and performance measures for a 30-day public comment period. And over late summer and the fall, staff has been working with our committees, the TAC and the CAC, and the board to revise and relook at the goals and performance measures. And if you remember, we went from a longer list of 17 goals down to 13. And we did that by combining some light goals and eliminating some statements that we thought were more policy statements than goals. So we're still at number 13, 13 goals. During our public comment period, we received comments via email through a public open house that we held here at PPACG, through 5 focus groups that we held throughout the region in Colorado Springs, Fountain, Monument, Falcon, and here at PPACG. The focus groups were, the audience was pre-selected. They were randomly selected individuals to help us get a better perspective of our goals and performance measures. The public open house was an event that we normally hold here at PPACG where staff is present to answer any questions, present materials, and we received a few comments through that. Generally, the public comments that we received did not suggest any substantial changes to the goal statements, only recommendations to make them easier to understand or clarifications. The focus groups also thought that the goals were reasonable, appropriate, and important, and that we move forward with them. You'll see in attachments 1 and 2, they are comments that we received through email and through a letter from El Paso County. Attachment 3 is a summary of the focus group input that we received. Attachment 4 shows, I forgot to mention this, also we held a phone survey. So attachment 4 shows you the results of the phone survey, and you'll see by reviewing that a majority of the goals either ended up in the somewhat important or very important category. And attachment 5 is what we're asking for your approval on today. Both the TAC and the CAC reviewed this in January and gave their recommendations. The only difference to highlight out of the 13 goals and all the performance measures, as Mr. Baker said, the CAC chair, there's a decision for you to make today, and that's what option to select for performance measures for Goal 12. Staff and TAC are recommending the miles of stream segments that exceed pollution standards performance measure. And the CAC, while they're also recommending that performance measure, they added one stating a percent of new transportation-related impervious surface area treated. It's page 3.
Last page of
attachment 5. Goal 12. And staff felt that the one performance measure that both the committees and staff agree on was a stormwater quality-based performance measure. We were comfortable with proceeding with just that one. We feel that the CAC recommendation is still a quality-related performance measure, but it just goes about it in an additional way. And we also felt that you can't really treat impervious surface area. So we're trying to understand, we think that what was meant was the percentage of new transportation-related impervious surface area created by the construction of transportation projects. But we feel that the performance measure that we're recommending is something that the state Public Health and Environment Department, their 303D document, it identifies all of the transportation-related pollutants, and we feel that this is something that we could easily collect the data for and track as we move forward.
So, Brian, I'm wondering if instead of using the word treated, if mitigated would get more towards perhaps what they were striving for.
So percentage of new transportation-related.
You know,
Brian?
You have impervious surface, and like you said, you can't treat it, so how do you deal with the runoff then? Is kind of where I was going.
Is there somebody from the CAC that was there that could?
Yeah, he was.
He's here, but he wasn't.
However,
But Bob, if you kind of want to get close to a mic there.
thank you. I think the member who posed this most was concerned about environmental impact. And I think mitigation would be, if used, would be a good trade-off. Because I think if you were to treat those surfaces, I think you're talking about what runs off of those surfaces and where it goes. Detention ponds, whatever the case may be, I think that is the point.
Yes, Mark?
On goal 12, it says, reduce the number of parking spaces. How does that help? Anything, except make it harder to park.
Can you repeat
I
that
think
one
you're
again?
on a different goal 12.
Goal 12, minimize the amount of stormwater runoff. Is that?
Oh.
Oh, that was a public comment from one of our focus groups. It was just a.
I don't like reducing parking spaces. I drive around looking for a place to park.
Emitting air pollution.
Yeah, well, but we're not. I don't think we're going to reduce our parking places. Right? I'm thinking that's something.
Yes, Craig?
To make people ride buses, right?
As far as mitigation, one of the things we have to do with this plan, we have a chapter for mitigation. We have to talk about how we're going to mitigate impacts. Stormwater runoff is one of the impacts, so it would be very harmonious for us to have a section in there on stormwater runoff, say, here's what we're going to do to mitigate. We can do proactive, retroactive mitigation to the areas where we haven't done that. That would fit extremely well into that mitigation chapter. So, just to keep that.
Joel? We'll go with Joel and then back over here.
I guess the only reason I would like to follow up is it seemed like there were very specific things that this individual was talking about in terms of there's a federal requirement already for federal projects. What was the specific federal requirement they were referring to? And there was a specific number, I believe. Wasn't it 12% or some sort of percentage? I don't know, maybe I just misread that, but there must be some federal standard that they were referring to, and I'm just trying to figure out.
I believe what she was referring to is, I mean, any project that receives federal transportation dollars has to go through an environmental process. And
Okay.
Tom, feel free to jump in if you can provide any input, but it was just that any impacts from the implementation of a transportation project has to be mitigated in some way, whether it's noise or water quality or runoff. So I think that's what she was referring to.
But I mean, CDOT has requirements. I mean, obviously, you're not building stuff without mitigating runoff. I mean, we don't go through the full environmental impact assessment, but I mean, state projects go through a study for
Absolutely.
stormwater and runoff and all that. So I'm just okay.
Commissioner Steen?
I guess my point is whether our intent is to manage practices, and assuming that practices really lead to outcomes, or whether it's just to measure the outcome. And it seems to me that the amount of impervious surface is a practice, and any number of which could result in better outcomes. So rather than list all the things that could affect stormwater pollution being pushed into our watersheds, whether it's just simpler and less cost-effective just to measure the outcome rather than measure all the possible things that produce that outcome. So I guess my view would be to, my recommendation just to move with option A. But
Andy?
Yeah, when we met working on the agenda, we had quite a discussion on this thing and trying to figure out what treated meant as opposed to anything else. And the best we could come up with is if we went back to cobblestones, the water would filter back in there. But the idea of mitigation instead of treated, or just drop the particular thing, and go with option A sounds like a more reasonable thing. We're all kind of working on stormwater, and those are already requirements. I'm not quite sure what it adds to add that in here.
Other comments? Someone want to...
Sally is here.
I never looked that direction. So we're going to go with Mark
I
first.
know, I should always remember to sit on that side.
That's why I moved.
Careful, it's dangerous over here on the left, Sally.
Notice why I'm on our guy.
So you never
I
check
had
your
a
right.
question, though. We have coming up project evaluation criteria and specifically weighting. So similar public process is what's intended, because it seemed to me that the devil's in the details. The weighting is going to be what's probably critical to, how much value each of these goals and performance measures gets. So could you just outline briefly similar process, public meetings, TAC and CAC, or?
Absolutely. I was going to get to that after you approved all this, but
Okay, that's fine.
no, thank you very much. If you look at page 3 of your board memo, it kind of outlines the process that we've been through so far. The first 6 bullets, which include the vision, mission, principles, the public participation plan, today's goals and performance measures, and the small area forecast, they're items that you've already dealt with and will hopefully approve here very shortly. All of those items below, it's still what we need to work on in the coming months. Looking at an October release for public comment of our overall draft regional transportation plan, and then adoption by the end of the year. And as Mayor Snyder said, once the goals and performance measures get adopted today, we'll start the evaluation criteria, objectives, targets, process, followed by the weighting of the goals and the evaluation criteria. So,
Weighting as in scale, not as in time.
yes, yeah. We're not going to wait very much anymore. We can't wait. But yeah, all the committees and the board and the public will get a chance to weigh in, pun intended, on how important all of these items are. So as Mayor Snyder said, system maintenance may be have a very high weight. Something like greenhouse gases or stormwater runoff may have a lower weight, but it all kind of balances out, and it's the same process that we've used continuously over the last few plans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Clark.
Well, I just, back to Goal 12, the letter that's in our packets from our county engineer, Andre Bracken, who's at the back of the room, I just had a side conversation with. I'm not comfortable with that option B with the percentage of the transportation-related impervious surface area treated, because it's just too subjective. So I don't know if you wanted Andre
you
to
prepared to make a
address
motion?
it. But, and the motion would be,
To
are
go
we,
with-
are we,
With option A?
are we just, are we just taking Goal 1 or Goal 12 right now, or
Actually, it
the
would be to
entire thing?
approve.
Were there any other items we needed to discuss before a motion's made? So that's my, I don't want to make the motion until we've gotten through anything. But
I believe
would
this
go with option
Goal
A.
12
so-
was the only one that really had an option. We obviously have the ability to discuss and change any of these if we want to, but I'm not sure I want to be the one to tell Brian we're going to do that. Commissioner Steen.
If we're finished with 12, I'd like to just a comment on 13, if you may, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
Okay. 13, the second performance measure there, percent of alternative fuel vehicles of total public fleet. I mean, I understand that the CO2, CO, and ozone levels especially is really impacted primarily by vehicles traveled. So I did a little checking with the county clerks, and DMV actually records as a part of the database how our vehicles in the county, registered county vehicles, are powered. So we can tell how many propane-powered vehicles, how many alternative vehicles are registered in the county. So I would suggest, Mr. Chair, that we change the second performance measure under Goal 13 from percent of alternative fuel vehicles of total public fleet to read percent of alternative fuel vehicles of total registered vehicles. It's a measure it's easily available through county clerks and DMV, and maybe when you might have a comment
I
on.
was looking toward our chief DMV official here. Is that statewide, so we're consistent?
Tell our clerk
from
tells me that
county
it
to
is
county?
possible, but Wayne might have another view.
I think it's possible.
Okay.
I guess the question I'm looking at there is, how does that help us in evaluating one project over another? Because if the purpose of these goals and objectives is to help us evaluate different transportation projects, the percent in the fleet has absolutely zero impact on evaluating the transportation projects if you're looking at this project versus another project. So, Brian, did you want to?
Sure. I just wanted to highlight that the goals and the performance measures, it's measuring the performance of the transportation system region-wide. It's not specifically measuring the performance or the scoring of transportation projects. The criteria that we get into in the scoring is where we'll get into how projects are scored, but this measures primarily just the system performance.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
But yeah, that is, when you come in and register your Tesla, my friend's got one. It's an awesome car. It cost $80,000, but it's an awesome car.
Thank you.
I guess,
did you have? No. Okay.
well, just to respond, maybe if we're evaluating a project that might enable more alternative vehicles, such as utility station for propane and liquid propane fuels and plug-in stations and so on, if that's a project list item for selection, then if we can better enable alternative fuel vehicles, it might be a criteria that's useful. But
Commissioner Clark?
I would suggest that, I know this sounds funny, maybe we should put that item in the parking lot, which makes sense. Look, when Commissioner DeWallaby is not even here to listen to that. I think I would like to go ahead and make a motion to approve as presented, and certainly continue the discussion on that before it comes back to us again. But in item number 12, going with option A. So that's my motion, is to approve as is with option A in item number 12, and then with consideration to Commissioner Steen, talking about that, maybe that change in 13 eventually, but not at this point.
I'll second that. In keeping with my theory of not voting on things I don't understand, since I don't understand the option B, you have to get a clear answer as to what exactly that measure is. I'll second Commissioner Clark's motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Miller.
Yeah, I'd like to revisit that number 2, the alternative fuel vehicles of total public fleet. If, again, we're using these goals to rate a project, and just realistically, whether it's the public fleet, and I'm not even sure what public fleet means. Does that mean all city vehicles? Does that mean public transportation vehicles? So unless we know exactly what the measurable outcome is, and then I don't think that there's a reason to have it on there. So and furthermore, a lot of these projects, couldn't really be linked to that. So to have it in place as a measurement that really doesn't have any role in meeting the goal, then I have trouble leaving it in there.
Brian or Craig, I'd like to have them take another shot at the explanation, because this is more than just rating projects. Yes.
The performance measures you have here aren't the goals or aren't the criteria we'll use to evaluate projects. You'll be getting those after we get these approved. What we're going to have to do every year is provide a metropolitan system performance report that measures how we're doing against the goals that start at the federal level, go to the state, and then down to our metropolitan area. And so what you see is Jason made a good point, that performance measures should be the system performance measures. We should have the word system there. And it's how the overall transportation system and things that are related to it are performing. The evaluation criteria we'll be bringing to you hopefully in 2 months or 3 months, and that's how we'll actually do the project scoring.
Okay. Well, I guess if I could, so even if these are transportation goals, again, does increasing the percentage of total public fleet really help you meet the goal of reducing, because potentially it's a drop in the bucket. If we're talking about the fleet vehicles and you have 100% fleet vehicles, you're really not moving the needle on the number 13 goal.
And I think that's why. Commissioner Steen
That
said
was
all the
Norm-
vehicles.
Norm's point that, let's take
Well, and
out
I'm not sure
public
that
and-
I'm not sure that that's a goal that I would agree with, is trying to reduce I would like to reduce emissions, but not necessarily, maybe reducing the number of alternative fuel vehicles isn't the only way to do that. I mean, maybe that's one way, but there's probably a whole host of things that could do that versus singling one out that
Back to
may or may
practice
not.
over outcomes.
Yeah. So,
Are you making an amendment?
well, I would request the maker of the motion to strike performance measure number 2 from goal 13.
And I guess I would ask Brian and/or Craig to address, what if we strike that out? What does that do to, does that hurt our goals in any way with regard to qualifying for certain kinds of funding, or is it something that won't make any impact?
Well, the goal, keeping the goal as part of our planning framework is the key piece. How we measure our performance in reaching the goal matters less. We have 2 other performance measures to measure our progress, but the work of the committees over the last several months, that was one of their items that they inserted in there and that they wanted included in the discussion. So it was just, it's something that the committees and staff felt that we could measure, and with Commissioner Steen's suggestion of striking public and inserting all alternative fuel vehicles, I mean, we feel that we can collect that information.
So let's get back to, with your recommendation, do you think it's best to keep that, but change the word public fleet to all registered vehicles?
Yes, staff believes it's a good measure to keep in there to see how we're measuring our overall system, and striking public would make sense, so we can measure all of
So
vehicles.
if I make my own friendly amendment and ask my seconder, and that's not going to satisfy Councilman Miller, but, so basically, to strike the words total public fleet and replace that with all registered vehicles, is that agreeable to you?
It is to me, yes.
Okay. So that's the way the motion stands. So that's not going to probably,
Councilmember Miller, you still have the ability to offer an amendment on Robert's rules.
An amendment to the motion?
Well, we're playing a little
Yeah.
loose here with
Well, I-
with Robert's rules, so what we just saw was not an amendment we're going to vote on. It's now part of the main motion, and we voted in that manner.
I modified my original motion.
Okay. Well, with that said, I amend the motion to remove the second performance measure from goal number 13.
And I second that.
Do we have any discussion on the amendment? With that, we'll call the roll on the amendment. All those in favor of removing the second performance measure on goal 13, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Chair rules that that amendment fails. Any discussion on the main motion, which approves the 13 goals using option A on goal number 12 and replacing the words total public fleet on goal 13, second performance measure, replacing total public fleet with all registered vehicles? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Item B, 2040 Regional Transportation Plan Small Area Forecast. Craig Casper.
Good morning, Craig Casper, Transportation Director. This is the 4th small area forecast that I have worked on, and it.
Craig,
Oops, sorry.
I'm getting direction here, not
I think you had a citizen that was coming to talk on the last
Oh, did I miss some public comment here?
Yeah, I don't know where you're all coming from, but on that regional transportation plan, I'm a rider on the bus all the time, and I see the bad areas in town, and they never get improved. Like on Cascade, it's very rough on the bus. There are a few places on Pikes Peak, very rough. Weber, between Kiowa and, not Kiowa, but Pikes Peak and Castile. That needs repaving, and it never gets anybody's concern in doing it. I've seen where areas are getting repaired but don't need to, like Tejon. They had a repair up by Cashlaputer, but then they tear the whole Tejon down to where I don't know where it was, Pikes Peak or Colorado, and I'm just saying there's other areas that need to be improved. And I see other areas that don't need improved, but they improve. So I want to bring it to your all committee. So
Thank you. And that sounds like probably more of a local city issue, and you have 3 city council members.
yeah, I
sitting
just
here
want
right
to bring
now.
it to your concern because it's really bad for the passengers as much as the bus drivers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Ian. This is the 4th small area forecast that I have worked on since I've been here, and at only a year, it's by far the fastest. I think that's due in large part to the small area task force that we formed this time. Not everybody showed up, but it's a large task force. You can see it listed in Appendix 4. The small area task force, or small area forecast, is the primary input in our travel demand model, and in a performance-based transportation process, it's going to drive which projects score well. That said, we know our small area forecast is wrong. We don't know how much it's wrong. We don't know where it's wrong. In fact, I would say that if any specific item on it is right, I'd be shocked. But it's still useful. The idea behind it is to provide information to our travel demand model. It is, lowering expectations. It's to provide information and input into your all's decision-making process. To further help that, we also, what we've done in the past is come up with additional growth scenarios. So we have our official forecast. This is what we use for air quality conformity. Then we have additional scenarios of alternative growth to make sure that the investment decisions to test the sensitivity of which projects are good, and it's just on the small area forecast, again, as I said, we know is wrong, or is it because it really is, it's a need and no matter what the future holds. I'm sure you've all spent a lot of time looking at the table, and you can see we have a lot of inputs that go into that small area forecast. It's eyewash.
Tom and I are reading it over here.
Yes. It's bigger. Yeah. We could make the font smaller, yes. Fewer pages. So, the small area task force, though, unanimously recommended that PPACG, you all use this for development of the long-range transportation plan, and the TAC and the CAC and staff all concur with that. We are closing in on 1 million people for our forecast, so we would use this for our 2040 long-range plan, and then in about a year and a half, we start again for the 2045 plan. So we do this every 4 years. A year and a half, we'll be back again with control totals and saying, hey, we need to do 2045. So, are there any questions?
Who's chairing?
Yes.
Are you the chair
Well,
currently?
I'm trying to
until
delay
Dennis
just
gets
another
back.
couple of seconds and everything.
I was going to tell you, you need to look to your right.
I wanted to ask Craig, last time around when we dealt with the small area forecast, there were some numbers that just didn't make sense logically, and so how for instance, Manitou Springs and certain areas of town that were supposed to get, huge population increases, and we couldn't figure out, although that maybe they're all running for marijuana, but I don't know now. I just wanted to find out if how you've cross-checked to make sure that the numbers are accurate, or as accurate as possible. I know what we're doing is a projection, not actuals, because you can't compare it until we actually do grow, but if you could go over that.
What we did, we use a model system called Tellem that allows you to put in floors that this zone won't drop below this population, and a ceiling, it won't go above this population. And we went back with the help of the local communities, the small area task force, and refined those floors and caps.
So were there any areas of concern where you modified that based on the projections and running the model?
Yeah, there were numerous refinements to the floors and caps. Everyone agrees that what the forecast you see is plausible for this development to occur, whereas on the scenarios, we made them caricatures of growth. We said, it's all infill or expansive growth, so those weren't necessarily realistic. They're to provide a sensitivity analysis, but this small area forecast is a plausible future for the
And you have the TAS numbers here, so is there a map somewhere that's available where people can go online and take a look at it?
Yep. And then we have also have Google Earth layer that if you have Google Earth, you can download it's called a KMZ, that you can download that and go in and select on it, and we'll tell you what's going on in that individual zone to help.
And is
understand.
that linkable? Is that linked
That's on our web.
PPACG's website?
Yep,
Okay,
that's on
great.
our web.
Thank you.
Other questions? So Craig, you are looking for
Recommendation of adoption of the 2040 small area forecast.
motion?
Move to adopt.
Second?
Further discussion? Anyone in the audience? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7A, under information items, 2013 PPACG Federal Planning Certification.
Good morning again. Every 4 years after we complete planning process, Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administration go in and do a review of the processes we used to make sure we meet a host of requirements, from how we involve the public to how we do our modeling to our fiscal constraint. We just completed that process, got that process back. We got 4 commendations, no corrective actions, and you should have a handout. In addition to the certification, the process that we use for the 2035 update is actually being cited as a best practice for performance-based planning that Federal Highway is putting out as an example of how other MPOs should do this. There have been there are 350 MPOs in the country. About 100 of them have tried performance-based planning. They said that of those, we are the MPOs whose process we should be followed. So wanted to point that out to you. And that's still in draft form. That's why it says revised first draft. It should say 2014, which gives you an idea that it is still a first draft, January. So,
Well, congratulations to Craig and Rob and the rest of the staff that put us at the top.
Yeah. So we're pretty happy with that. But you can see through we are certified to keep planning. Woohoo! Yeah. Unfortunately, no, it does not come with more money. The better process you have, you don't get more money. So, are there any questions?
Nobel Peace Prize.
Dang it.
More money comes from the parking places.
And I will, on those notes, the working group, they do know that we need a big sign that says Park County this way for Cimarron, so I've mentioned that every meeting, so.
Dallas, too.
Yeah. Any questions on certification?
Park County this way via telephone.
Answer? Apparently not.
No, it's
7B, draft tip amendment Amendment for CDOT projects.
That's my item. Craig's going to drive the mouse over there. He's certified, by the way, to do that. The tip amendment in your packet is just an information item. The last two tip amendments you had on your agenda, you don't have a tip amendment this time? Transportation Improvement Program for some of our new folks that may not know that acronym. So we didn't want to let you off the hook. We got to talk about tip amendments. For those who joined us for the workshop last Friday, thank you. The board had a workshop to go in depth over federal certification, federal law, why we do all this planning and all the steps we go through that you see in your packets, and why do we do tips, and why we fight so hard for the components of the plan. Well, this is why, because it gets down to the money for the projects. So the tip we have is a 6-year version of, no kidding, we're going to fund these projects worth $600 million. We tell the feds, the state, public, anyone who will listen that this is the priority list that this board has set, and it's worth $600 million, and that money is reasonably expected to be available. So as we go through the tip, and when we talk about the Alliance's priority list, we've normally always given the tip to any member of Congress that asked. We'll give it to Tyler to bring into that group, because the storyline goes, if the feds, the state, anybody wants to fund any priority in this region, here's the tip. You got $600 million, about 100 projects. Pick one. We don't care. This board is saying those are our priorities. And so to lock in those priorities really takes dollars. And so the last couple of months you've seen tip amendments brought forward by CDOT under the RAMP program to fund pieces of the overall RAMP projects in this region. What we have in your packet, and I put up on the screen for the audience, back last April, April of 2013, this board agreed that this funding plan behind me and in your packet, this is the money available for those RAMP projects, and you authorized us to submit to the state under the RAMP program all these projects with these funding scenarios. We, as a staff, love to fulfill the priorities that you all have in the tip. This data sheet is the big projects in this region. I'll refer to that. The biggest one is I-25 Cimarron. On the left side of this graphic, you can see $95 million is the total. Through a tip amendment, you approved the $24 million ramp and $6 million through the Pikes Peak RTA. There's 30 of $95 million. We get a little nervous as staff, and our committees, I think, get a little nervous when we say, well, where's the rest of the money? On the right side, we identified with CDOT Region 2, and we brought it to you last April, these funding categories in the tip that seem to be available. We verified at the time they're available, and it comes up to $46.5 million of those categories that we need to tip as a verb, those categories in the tip that are available for that I-25 Cimarron. And so part of why we want to talk about it today and then send it back through the committees is to verify one more time that that money still, we see it as there. CDOT Region 2 sees it as there. So we want to have that tip amendment come back, get processed by this board to say, okay, all this money that we're talking about needs to be tipped so that CDOT can go build the projects. Or in a case of a devolution project, that the local government or whomever can go build their projects with all the available flavors of money. And so what we lay out is we see 3 projects on here, 3 projects, and it's in your memo. I-25 Cimarron we talked about, that needs, we think, around $57 million. And I know CDOT's in the room, and we've heard that number. So that's where the 57 comes from. It's from CDOT, who's going to go build that. I-25 Fillmore, that project is a question whether we need $2 million or $3 million. We can find out that number, but we know it's a couple $1 million for that project to be made whole, and we don't have to go into our tip, reprioritize, and shift money around. Third one is State Highway 21, Peterson Air Force Base, West Gate. It was a ramp submission. It did not get selected under the CDOT ramp program. It shows it needs about $8 million.
In
So-
fact, Rob, just
Yeah.
point something out, that you're showing that top line up there shows $10 million from Powers Boulevard. That's where that funding came from. It went into Cimarron. It's one of the pieces that funds that $47 million of Cimarron. The funds were shifted from
Right.
from the
And I think
Powers
some-
corridor there.
Yeah, Tom's exactly right. Some of these categories have been shifted, but not an official TIP amendment by this board. I think CDOT Region 2 is ready to put it in that category, but until it's in the TIP, signed off by, the TIP amendment gets signed off by the governor and CDOT headquarters, and then it's done. So that funding scheme, these projects, we think it's around $70 million. Now, you'll say, hey, Rob, where do you find $70 million? Well, the second attachment, and why we talk about our certification and all the other things, in your TIP right now, we've identified $318 million in what we call pools of funding, different categories of funds that a year ago in March, and we talked about certification in the last agenda item. In your packet, you see letters that reference the fiscal constraint of the TIP. Now, we have the approval by Federal Highways, head of CDOT, the governor. Everyone agrees that that money in our TIP is reasonably available. Over the 2013 through 2018 time period, in those categories of pools of funds, $318 million. What we're suggesting is we pull down the $70-ish million for these three projects, make it a TIP amendment, send it through the committees, back up to the board, maybe next month, maybe in April, to lock in this funding scenarios to get these projects done. And it still, in our reckoning, leaves $200-ish, $240-ish million in those pools of money. Some of those pools haven't been allocated. They won't be allocated. Their processes occur over the next couple of years. But we think it's very conservative to pull $70 million from an unknown pool of money, put it on specific projects, and make it a TIP amendment. And so that's why we're bringing that today. In your packet, we showed you copies of your TIP that's approved, signed off, stamped off. We went back and did the research, so everyone agrees less than a year ago that this is a reasonable pile of money. If we had our druthers, we'd recommend spending a couple $100 million. But we know there's been some changes, but we don't think there's been $300 million in change at the state level for these funding categories. And if you'll remember, and some of you at the workshop heard this, these funding categories at the state level, they were provided to PPACG by the state. We didn't make up the numbers and say, it's our fair share, it's this or that. We said, okay, CDOT, state, tell us how much money there is in these categories, and we dropped it in, as we do with Mountain Metro Transit. We asked the city of Colorado Springs, how much money do you think you've got? And they give us a number, we put in the TIP. So the TIP brings all that, PPRTA, and says this is reasonable. So the request today is not an action item, but more of a heads up, and unless you tell us to stop, we're going to bring it through the committees to try to get a formal TIP amendment to fund these three projects from pool dollars into specific project dollars.
Questions, comments for Rob? Councilmember Miller.
Just a quick question. You were referring to $318 million on these charts, and I just didn't see that in the 2014 column. Is that where it?
I'm sorry. It's over the years 2013 through 2018.
Okay, so that's
it's over multiple years of the TIP.
So that's the state amount, the 318.
The 318 is what we found in all the different pools.
Because it's showing in the state row on that bottom. The total.
Yeah, I think that subtotal is just a subtotal. I don't think it adds the second page.
Can I just clarify something?
What was that, Mark?
The $95 million includes the Park County, Teller County sign?
I think it's an electronic variable message sign.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, there's a parking ride.
Region 2 Director Tom Rona.
I just wanted to add that, Rob, you've presented the information rather clearly, but a lot of the numbers that we see there in the TIP and the STIP, they're based on planning totals and not actual values. And you did mention that those numbers do change. That's correct, and they're less than what's shown there. We're doing everything we can as a department to at least to honor the STIP through fiscal year 15, where that funding is fixed. And we're actually struggling through this. I think you're just a little bit ahead of the game right now, and give us some more time to come up with how we're going to put particular dollars of what color money into these projects to make them whole, to get them advertised on schedule as we're planning. Once we've identified the dollars and how much of that is the local share, then that's at the point of time when we should make the TIP amendments and get those projects budgeted and moving forward. We do plan to move forward, and hopefully by June or July with advertising the Fillmore project and the State Highway 21 Powers Old Ranch Road project. The Cimarron project is a challenge. It's not 57 million short, as shown here and as outlined in several documents that you probably have all seen. The true shortcoming of that project is around $19 or $20 million at this point, and we're working with all of our different offices at headquarters to try and come up with a plan to see whether or not we can fill that gap, if you will. We don't believe at this point that asset management or maintaining the existing system dollars will fund all of that. At best, that probably gets down to a $10 million deficit yet in that project. So we still have some challenges to make that project whole. Either we need to look at possibly scoping or scaling the project back slightly and hoping for an excellent proposal that would bring those items of work back into play and make the project whole, or we may need to have some serious discussion with our local partners about helping with funding that shortfall. There's one element of that project that particularly which involves replacing the Cimarron Bridge over Fountain Creek that's on the city street. And to fit what we feel is the appropriate design of that new interchange, that bridge needs to be replaced. And it's $8 to $9 million worth of construction work. So we're trying to leave no stone unturned, if you will. It's our goal to fund those three ramp projects and move them ahead, move them forward. And I think the city's got some excellent, Kathleen could probably speak to that, excellent ideas about how we can make improvements to State Highway 21 at the entrance to Peterson and address that with a lot less money than is outlined here. Considering we took that money and had to put it into Cimarron to help make that project whole. Decision that was made by this group many months ago. So, we're making strides, and all this is coming together within the next few months. But, if you could be a little bit patient, and we'd be working with your staff to try and come up with those gaps to make these projects whole.
Yeah, I can wait for the input. Craig, can you put the funding scenario sheet up? And Tom's right on with the details, but I want to show the board and the public. There, we're done.
I keep changing my page.
While he's doing that, we could always make the westbound off-ramps going to Teller and Park County's toll roads, and we
Sure. Do you have
with the big sign. With the big sign.
Yeah. Do you have a concessionaire in mind?
You could park for free in park.
Free parking, yeah.
And what I pointed out, and part of the TIP amendment, and Tom's exactly right. On the right side, you can see those line items under current advanced STIP funding. You go down those line items. We'd like to have as part of the TIP amendment back to the committees, talk about that. because a couple of those have already been, checked off. I think one of them in there under the TIP or the STP Metro, the local money, this board has a lot of discretion. There's some projects that can be replaced, we think, with state money and free up, say, $2 million in that STP Metro for local governments to go fight over. So part of the consideration is nail down that, and it's $46.5 million. Now, what Tom, you talked about is right on the money, that right in the middle, the $18.5 million under ramp asset management, that's been the loosest money to nail down. I mean, that's jello to a tree type loose. And so trying to close that gap's one thing. But with all these projects, we'd like to start knocking off where we can a TIP amendment to maybe lock down the $46.5 million. As I said, we know, is the $318 million in all these funding categories there over 5-6 years? We know it's not. But we don't think $300 million is missing. We're having a discussion with our friends at Dr. Cog, North Front Range, the other MPOs. They too are sharing a concern that pool money may not be as solid as they once thought. Even though it's in the TIP and the state STIP, we want to make sure it's there. We want to start capturing that, putting in the TIP toward all these projects, and then keep moving forward as we, in the next few months. Tom, I think you're exactly right. If we can nail down any and all pieces of ramp funding, that's what we want to keep tipping as we go along, because when CDOT wants to go build this, they don't want to wait. I mean, you need enough money to put it out to bid. You don't want to wait for a discussion, say, hey, locals here or around the state, we may need another $10 million from your sources of money. That's not a couple-month discussion. I think everyone's identified all their money. It's all being spent. So for another $10 or $20 million for a project in this neck of the woods, staff-wise, we think it comes from these pools. But if it's not from this $318 million in pools, there's not much others left except the STP Metro funds, and those are projects the local governments have already committed to. You've got match to, it's in your budgets, and you've done the environmental clearances. So it has a different level of discussion. So we'd like to have the discussion through committees, and it may be a multiple-month discussion. It allows Tom CDOT to start nailing down some of these other funding sources. But we'd like to move forward. We get nervous when pool money looks like it's all there, feels like it's all there. But if we can't tip it, then we get real concerned that project's going to be delayed.
And I can tell you right now, it's not all there, Rob. I mean, from at least beyond 15, nothing's for certain, and that's in the STIP beyond fiscal year 15.
Right. And we understand
And that's some of those totals are changing now and into the future. So, it's really, we really have to work close with the city and county staff. One of our first steps, early action items, are to draft intergovernmental agreements that will spell this out as to the responsibility of what the parties are and their contribution, and allow us to then take that next step to actually get those the dollars budgeted into those projects and move forward. And I've got a long memory, and I'm going to fight for every one of those dollars that I believe we still have coming to us, to the region, that's now out of the region's control. It's not in a region pool anymore. It's in a statewide pool. But I'm letting everyone know that I remember those commitments, and we've got documentation, and we're trying to get these projects moving forward. However, we do have that shortage on Cimarron that we're going to have some tough discussion.
Sure, and the request may be up through CDOT headquarters to say maybe CDOT headquarters wants to drive a TIP amendment taking money out of these pools, saying $200 million is really not there, $300 million is not there, and that would be a discussion through committees and back to the board. I think, if that's the case here and in Dr. Cog, there's going to be a statewide discussion. And unfortunately, Wayne left, but Norm, you represent us, and I don't know if Lisa's still here. The STAC would have a very robust discussion if statewide the ramp dollars, which are $300 million a year times 5 years, math says 1.5 billion. If that's been reallocated from DRCOG's tip, our tip, North Front Range with this Fort Collins tip, Grand Junction tip, there's 5 MPOs in the state, Pueblo included, that may have some issues with that money being diverted, repurposed, gone, however it's classified. So we're having a statewide discussion with our other MPOs because we and they want to tip as much as they can. We want to tell CDOT, go build the priority projects. We've already told you it's a priority. Go build. Because CDOT, they build with the best of them. They just need the money to go do that.
I would like to let Tom know that at CCI there's discussion that amongst various commissioners that our local pool money is, while we think it's ours, it appears that the state is pretty convinced it's theirs, and that kind of brings us to a discussion that since most of this was federal money to start with, and I believe the rules are that the TIP and the STIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan, and the State Transportation Improvement Plan have to align before the feds sign off on it and say, yeah, go spend our money. Any thoughts there?
Well, those can always be amended, but the reality of it is our commitment, the fiscally constrained portion of that STIP is just through fiscal year 15.
Right.
It's not out through 17 as, what Rob's talking about through 17 and pool totals that are through 17 in those outer years are they're not set. But it's interesting. We're moving into a new era where we're spending the dollars as quickly as we possibly can, and dollars that were in a bank account in Pueblo are being spent in Greeley at this point in time. The account for highway projects, where we're moving to a real-time cash management basis, and that's one reason why the funds need to be located centrally. But we all have the STIP. We all know what commitments have been made. We all have ramp projects that have been approved, and the assurance is that the money is going to be there to make it happen if it was shown as fully funded, if those projects were planned to be fully funded. Now we've made some changes. This TPR, this MPO area has made significant changes to the STIP, and maybe they haven't been formalized yet, but some of them are shown here where we've made decisions. This group has made decisions where that money is going to be transferred into one particular high-priority project. And I'm going to make sure that those dollars stick with this project. Okay, and we did have commitments up through at least 15. Some of those show outer years, and some of those dollars in outer years you can count on a little bit more strongly than others based upon the category of funding. But, trust us at this point. That's all I can say. Give us a couple of months to work out some of these details and kind of bear with us. And I know Doug has got some comments he'd like to make as well. You see him standing up there, and probably regarding this same issue.
Let's go to our citizen here again.
I was wondering, when is the proposal for this Fillmore Bridge going to be effective? This year, June or July, or?
Well,
we hope to advertise that project to bidders in June of this year, June or July, but that depends on how quickly we can get our intergovernmental agreement executed. That would probably be the only holdup. I know the design is well along. The right-of-way is either clear or close to be cleared, and the environmental clearance is complete. So that one's moving. It's going to be moving pretty quick.
Okay.
To construction.
Thank you. Doug?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doug Lawler with CDOT. I just wanted to point out, just to kind of frame when we're talking about what was in the TIP, I just want to point out that there's a huge amount of money in both maintenance and operations and strategic projects that amounts to probably over $200 million showing in there that isn't necessarily going to be available for projects at this point. And just the next comment I'll make, and in support of my boss here, every time he comes back from Denver, his program assistant puts the salve on from all the wounds that he has. So we really are at the region level. We're pushing for that, trying to be as creative as we can in looking at the revenue sources that are available.
But at some point, state and local have to match. So I would encourage our local MPO to continue working towards the match, but you obviously have to work with your counterparts at CDOT. The heavy-handed approach isn't going to work from either direction.
No, we absolutely agree. And just to add on, we feel for CDOT Region 2 that their accounts get rated by Greeley or wherever. If you could tap into the Denver pool, that would be awesome. They seem to have a pile of money that if, it can come to Region 2, we support you in that. The last thing I'll talk about, in the packet we gave out in Attachment 4, we take it as a real deal when the feds write the letter to Don Hunt, the head of CDOT, to say, the tip you have is 2013 to 2018. We count all those years. You all went through the brain damage, your local government staff members at the CAC, everyone went through the brain damage to say, these are the projects through 2018. The feds are saying, we recognize that. And I understand, we go year by year, and it's not a commitment to 2018 for all this money. We change the tip monthly around here. But to the magnitude we're talking about, and Doug is exactly right, some of those are maintenance dollars. But as we've seen, CDOT's amazingly creative to use maintenance dollars, paving dollars to fix things as part of projects. And so when we look at all these categories in the upper right to fund Cimarron, well, that is locally derived. A lot of that's locally derived, this board-derived priority of funding. And so when you take money off of your projects to put towards Cimarron, you've already committed that local share. And as we see around the state, some projects don't have a local share. And so that was a discussion the board's had. So we're going to track it closely. Our federal partners are tracking it closely with us because the chair is exactly right. When you talk about the feds, they pay attention and they say, well, federal money has to follow these rules. And so what's in your packet are the certification of those rules. They're saying this is reasonable dollars. Everyone agrees. We just want to understand if there's a change, we'd like to know earlier than later. Because if the locals have to come up with more money for ramp, that wasn't the understanding when we all applied to ramp. There's some matches for ramp, but not every ramp project needed a match.
Okay. Moving on to 7C. And while Kent's coming forward, for our military partner, and all four of our major installations were represented earlier, we talked about the fact that when you came on board here, you would find yourself sitting through lots of things that may not really pertain, but suddenly when we had your attention, it would probably fully have your attention. We would be happy to work with you on agenda items that you would like to see come forward. So,
thank you very much. So I know Colonel Shaw's still here, based on most of his. He went to have a side discussion in the hallway. If I could ask a question, I've been to two now, and there are certainly topics in here that apply to us. I mean, this one certainly applies to Peterson Air Force Base. Some of the things that I saw in the goals as far as the stack that were reviewed talk about an issue that we have discussed out at Schriever of Highway 94 and what do we do there. What is the best way for me or my team to feed into those discussions to represent the 5,000 or so plus that are commuting on that road back and forth each day?
I'm wondering if Norm might be a good point. We could also a staff member.
I think preliminarily, I would say that you talk with our planning director in transportation, Craig Casper, to get the dialogue going, and then we talk, through a decision level to proceed.
And that matches. I actually had a conversation with Doug, I don't know where he went, Lawler, last time. And so, okay, perfect. I'll start that way and we'll go from there. And again, thank you very much for letting us participate.
And by the way, on this agency caregiver program overview, I realize from a military standpoint that may not be something you're really focused on, but somewhere around the country, wherever your parents live, there's a group just like this having this discussion. So,
In actuality, if I was being, that was my first kind of thought. But out at Schriever, we have housing out there now, 242 units. We've got 6 retirees that live in the housing out there now. So I'm going to take this, and it'll be out in our housing community center, so it'll be there and available for folks that want it. So it's a small group of folks, but we do have some out there, interestingly enough.
Okay. Kent.
Thank you. It's good to be here. My name is Kent Matthews, and I do the Family Caregiver Support Center here at the Area Agency on Aging. And just to give you a definition of what a family caregiver is, a family caregiver is basically a person who is not paid and is providing care or support to another person. So that means that a family caregiver could be a relative, it could be a spouse, it could be an adult child, it could be a niece, it could be a grandchild providing care. But it could also be a neighbor, it could be a friend, it could be a person who is a member at the church where the care receiver goes to. And the caregiving doesn't necessarily mean hands-on care. A family caregiver is somebody who is helping the person pay the bills, or who is helping them get to the grocery store, or helping them with a variety of things like managing finances or coming over and doing light repair in the house. That's what a caregiver is. That's what a caregiver does. All of you probably know a person who could be considered a family caregiver, and you may have been one. You may be one, you may are one already, and that's why this topic is so important. And before I explain what I do with the program, there is a test, unlike those of us, if you've had kids, you've always wondered, is there a manual? And the answer is no. Well, there is a test to determine the mental status of your ability to be a family caregiver. And I've asked Councilman Steen, he's willing to participate, and Mayor Turley. So, Councilman, if you could go over and sit by the mayor. Commissioner, sorry.
That's okay. He lives in Teller County, so.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this is a simple 4-question test. And gentlemen, when you want to answer the test, just hit the bell, and then I'll say yes or no, and then I'll explain what the answers mean. So the first question is, on this test, how do you put a giraffe into a refrigerator?
Very carefully or something.
Yes.
Open the refrigerator door.
And?
Cut them in small pieces.
Wrong. No, yeah. The correct answer is you open the door, put the giraffe in, and then shut the door. That's how you put him in the refrigerator. Okay. Second question.
Where's him?
Oh, by the way, the purpose for this question was to test to see whether or not the caregiver tends to do simple things in an overly complicated way. Okay? So, here's the second question. Second question is, how do you put an elephant into a refrigerator? Yes.
Shove it in and close the door.
Wrong.
Take the giraffe out.
Here's what you do. Yeah, you're right. You open up the door, take the giraffe out, put the elephant in, and then you shut the door. Very good. Okay.
I have more than one refrigerator.
So now this tests your ability as a caregiver to think through the repercussions of your previous actions. Okay? So, third question. The Lion King is hosting an animal conference. All of the animals attend except one. Which animal does not attend? Yes?
The one in the refrigerator.
Yeah, very good. Yay! Now, evidently, this question tests the caregiver's memory ability, how much they remember. Last question, then you're off the hook. There is a river that you must cross, but it is used by crocodiles, and you do not have a boat. How do you cross the river?
Go to the refrigerator.
Take the frozen elephant out of the refrigerator.
Yes.
I'm going to walk across on the back of the crocodiles.
No, wrong, because they're at the conference.
Oh.
The answer is you jump in and you swim across. Because everybody's at the conference except the elephant that's in the refrigerator. Very good. Okay, so this tests as a caregiver whether you learn quickly from your mistakes. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Give them a hand.
He didn't say you were going there.
Real briefly, what I do at the Family Caregiver Support Center is provide support to family caregivers. I do that in a number of different ways. The primary way is with consultations. The consultations that we do are free of charge, and when the caregiver comes in, we sit down and we talk about their current caregiving situation. We talk about what, in social work terms, we call the presenting problem. What is it that urged them to pick up the phone, call me to come in for the appointment? And then in that consultation, we look at what are the resources in the community that would help with the problem, and then how to access those resources. And then we also begin to think about a long-term plan. And the reason to think about the long-term plan is because most family caregivers are providing support to a family member or care receiver who has multiple chronic conditions. Those multiple chronic conditions are going to continue to get worse over a period of time, and things change. If there's something that is constant about family caregiving, it's the fact that everything changes from month to month, week to week, oftentimes day to day, sometimes hour to hour. Last year in 2013, I provided about between 550 to 600 hours of consultations to family caregivers. We're averaging right now about 42 consultations per month with family caregivers, and that number keeps growing each year and each month. The second thing that I do is we have a respite voucher program. The purpose for the voucher program is to give the family caregiver a break from the caregiving. The vouchers are good for a 30-day period. We provide consumer choice in that program, and the way we set it up is if the caregiver would like a voucher, the two qualifications to receive a voucher are these. One is age. Either the caregiver or care receiver needs to be 60 or older, and the care receiver needs to be dependent in 2 of the 6 activities of daily living. So the care receiver has to require help in at least bathing, dressing, toileting, mobility, transferring, or eating. 2 of those 6. If they are dependent in 2 of those 6 and somebody's over the age of 60, they can receive a voucher. Has nothing to do with financial status or anything like that. And the caregiver, once they are eligible to receive a voucher, need to tell me what type of voucher they want. Do they want a daycare voucher? Do they want a home care voucher? Which provider do they want to use? We have 3 daycares in El Paso County that accept the vouchers. We have 14 home care agencies that accept the vouchers. So they tell me type of voucher, provider, then they tell me the start date. Once I have that information, I issue them the voucher. So that allows us to give some good temporary support to family caregivers. We also do education. Twice, sometimes 3 times a year, we do an evidence-based course called Powerful Tools for Caregivers. That course runs for 6 weeks, and it basically teaches caregivers how to thrive. It teaches them how to take care of themselves. Caregivers get so embroiled and wrapped up in the caregiving that it's very difficult for them to take care of themselves because they're focused on the person that they're helping. And all of the statistics show that caregivers, if they do not take care of themselves, will suffer physical and emotional stress and distress to the point of it may kill them. Last year in 2013, I had 4 family caregivers in my program who died before their care receiver because of the stress of the caregiving. So this course teaches them how to take care of themselves, how to thrive. We also do a a support group called Passages in Caregiving. It's based off of this book by Gail Sheehy called Passages in Caregiving, Turning Chaos into Confidence. It's an excellent book if you ever want to read it to get an insight in terms of what family caregivers go through, the different changes and whatnot that they encounter. This is an excellent book. I also do individual classes over at Pillar and at the Colorado Springs Senior Center to teach caregivers how to better take care of themselves physically and emotionally as well. And then a new program that we just started and it's just getting off the ground is called the Caregiver Coaching Program. It's based off of a similar program out of Westchester County, New York. And what we are doing is we are taking people who have had experience as a family caregiver, and they've been away from the caregiving for about a year. And they volunteer with us. We send them through a 10-hour training, and then once they go through the training, we will match them with current family caregivers to be their coach or their mentor. We ask that the coach have at least one face-to-face contact with their family caregiver once a month. We also encourage the coaches to make phone calls, emails, or whatnot, to be there to support them, to walk through this with them. They become the sounding board for the family caregiver, a place where they can let go of that stress. The program is in a pilot phase right now. We're introducing it slowly into the community, and we've taken another unique approach with this program is that we have different sites around the community. I am the overall administrator for the program, but the different sites are located at, right now we've got 5. One is at Village at Skyline. The second one is at First Congregational Church. Third one is at Sunrise United Methodist. Fourth one is at the National MS Society Colorado Wyoming chapter, and the fifth one is at the Colorado Springs Senior Center. And the reason for the sites is because we want to, as the program grows, we want to have this program into the community where it's the most effective, where it can get into the neighborhoods, where the caregivers really live. And we figured if we do a site approach, then as we multiply the sites, we will then be able to get into those parts of the community that really would benefit from having this kind of program to support the family caregivers. And then once a year, and we're coming up on it in about 2 weeks, once a year we do a special program for the family caregivers in the community. It's called a Caregiver Pampering Day. We do it at the Colorado Springs Senior Center. Every year it's on the last Saturday in the month of September, so this year it's going to be on February 22nd. And we just basically pamper the family caregivers. They come there, they can receive massages, foot massages, back massages. The ladies can get manicures, pedicures. We have yoga, tai chi, art classes, just a way for them to feel pampered, to feel taken care of. It's absolutely free of charge to the family caregivers. We also provide free respite. We have this year 3 home care agencies who have agreed to provide free care in the home to the care receiver of the caregiver so the caregiver can come in and attend the event. And out of the 110 family caregivers who will attend this year's event, about 36 of them are taking advantage of that free respite. We feed them a continental breakfast. We feed them a catered lunch. And Mackenzie's Place is providing the catered lunch. Health South Rehab is providing the continental breakfast. And without the support of the community, the businesses, the organizations coming together to provide everything free of charge, we wouldn't be able to do the event. And on Saturday the 22nd, the estimate is we'll probably have 60 to 70 volunteers from different organizations and businesses there to make the event happen to pamper the caregivers. That's basically my program, the Family Caregiver Support Center. It's probably one of the best kept secrets in town. There's a lot of reasons for that, but we are here to serve the family caregivers, whether they be civilians or whether they be in the military. We're here to help provide support to them to get them through this process so they thrive and they live through the process and have a life after the caregiving is ended.
Ken?
Yep.
One of the reasons you're the best kept secret in town is you don't have your contact information.
Oops, sorry about that. Yes, it's right here. But thank you. I forgot to put that on the flyer. And you know, when you produce something, you're thinking constantly, there's something I forgot, there's something I forgot. And thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, I know who I am. I can best be reached at my direct line, and if you want that, my direct line here is 471-7080, and I'm at extension 115. And I make it a priority to return all of my phone calls. I mean, in terms of everything that I do, my top priority is to meet with the caregivers, have the consultations, provide support to them on the phone, provide support to them over emails. So I make that my top priority. I return calls, emails within a day or two. People don't go off into cyberspace, guaranteed. Other questions?
Questions?
I think the fourth Saturday is actually the 27th of September, not the 22nd.
No, it's 22nd of February. I'm sorry, February. Yeah, it's coming up in 2 weeks or 10 days. February 22nd. Yeah. And we do have some caregivers from Teller County coming down.
In fact, I think one of them's your kids.
Take note, I didn't say that. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Yes, right. That brings us to Colorado State Legislative Session Update.
Last item before lunch. Two things. Local transportation. Actually, I do have to say, Kent, if when you visit the Kent is our Justin Bieber. If you go to our Facebook page, I know all of you visit Facebook. Kent gets more responses. We get more hits on our page when Kent's face is on there. It's amazing. Oh yeah, yeah. When you were in the Life Over 50 article.
As long as we clarify how he's like Justin Bieber.
Yes. Thank you, Sally. Thank you.
Like us on Facebook and find out. Local transportation, Representative Del Grosso represents Loveland, introduced a bill. That's the very first one on your list. If you didn't get one of these trackers, I handed them out. We will also send these out electronically on a weekly basis starting next week. But I have a few more here. I don't think this one's going to get out of committee. He wants to transfer $100 million from the general fund to the state highway fund. If, however, it were to get out of committee, the thing that should concern us as PPACG, the first change there, they want to allocate that in proportion to the number of state highway system lane miles. If you have been around PPACG for a while, or if you're brand new, big foot stomper, distribution by lane miles is not good for our region. We get the short end of the stick on that every time. So if we were to support this bill, we would want an amendment allocation by population, or by just about anything else besides lane miles. That one is there for your review, consideration. And then on the third page, I just wanted to highlight the third one down. This is federal legislation, the Older American Act reauthorization. They had their committee hearing yesterday. I provided the link. Very interesting stuff. There is what's called the hold harmless provision, which basically says your funding, the funding to the states won't ever go down, and it's based on the 2000 census. Well, if you've paid attention to the census, you know that some states, like Michigan, have lost population since 2000, but they're keeping their funding at the same level. So it's one of the considerations in the reauthorization is how they would handle that hold harmless. States like Colorado, states like North Carolina are negatively affected. Representative Hudson from North Carolina's 8th District brought that point up. We tweeted his question. He favorited our tweet. There's a win in the Policy and Communications Department, but it is something to consider. Programs like all of our AAA programs, that Older Americans Act funds the state, which then there's a Older Coloradans Act that then funds us. So that's where the funding comes from. Speaking of funding, right now DrCog is leading the charge on Older Coloradans Act funding, looking at an increase in the state. We have a draft letter. They provided some bullet points, and I'll hand this out as people are interested. They're looking at possible $4 million increase. They want to take that to the Joint Budget Committee, JBC. Our own Senator Kent Lambert is on the JBC. And the question there is, would people be willing to, is this something that we would be looking at supporting? That would mean about $400,000 for this region. As you know, $400,000, I think that puts stripes in the parking lot maybe, but on a transportation project, but for Area Agency on Aging, that actually provides a whole lot of services. Here's the proposed letter with some good bullet points in there, and I'll leave it for people to take a look at. And if that's something we want to support, the Joint Budget Committee is starting to do their figure setting today. They're beginning today. So that's what I have. Any questions on legislative issues?
Please communicate by email because things will change significantly between now and this time next month.
Yep, will do.
Do you represent us at the State House?
For our federal kinds of things, you know, that our money, we can't lobby. That's why we have that separate lobbying group. However, we can lobby on Area Agency on Aging related things. So.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going. There's a point to be made at the legislature, the commissioners and councilmen are all, we were there yesterday all day.
Okay.
I was.
Guy, did you have something to add there? Okay.
I'd just like to take what Jason said a step further. You have a list on the document that was provided you of JBC members, and if you feel like you can, I'd like you to make a call, write an email, make a personal contact, and support this increase. This is, in past years, increases have been run in a bill, and as we've talked to legislators, there seems to be more appetite for an increase in the long bill rather than a specific piece of legislation. So therefore, if the Joint Budget Committee is on board early, it really increases our chances. The $4 million statewide, as Jason said, is about $440,000 for us here. That's a significant increase, and at the same time, we need to keep in mind that our population that we serve is increasing extremely rapidly. We need to be able to keep up with that change and keep on serving those people so that they don't use more expensive services at public expense, and also so that they can remain happy and healthy in their homes. So if you can see your way to do that, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, just to tag on a little bit. For overall, and Jason said it, we're going to email this out weekly, and you may get a request from us, and we certainly can call the executive committee together if we want you all or a board presence to comment on a bill or testify on a bill. But the item that we're just talking about, the $4 million, we're hearing is not going to be a form of a bill this year, except the long bill, the state budget. And so that's why the JBC members have been targeted by the AAAs around the state, including us, Dr. Cog, to talk to the JBC members so they can put it in the long bill as they devise it. And so as a request, we'd be happy to join anyone who would like to reach out to our representative, Senator Lambert. If you need information, we can get it to you. If anyone knows him and does that contact, let us know, because around the state, the JBC members are being lobbied on this very item.
Thank you. Mr. Clark.
Rob, I've found Senator Lambert actually to be very mindful of our requests when he's contacted. So if you could give me a couple, or Guy could provide just a couple of bullet points and essentially the ability for him to say this is why it's important to my community, then it really, I think, helps if they've got those talking points in front of them. So if you can send those to me electronically, it doesn't have to be a novel, just a one-page fact sheet, whatever you can. I'm happy to contact him about this.
Okay, yeah, and I think we emailed to the board Monday what we just handed out to you. So Sally, look at page 2 to see if that suffices under background. It has the bullet points of why, at least for this region, we would recommend his support. But if you need more information, just let me know, because I think, Guy, we can prepare volumes, but we don't want to do volumes. We'd rather have a fact sheet that
Do we know how much of the $4 million would go to us?
I think around 440,000.
Okay. And then, do you know how we generally spend those dollars
Here
specifically?
comes Guy for that detail.
So, just to put in context, the budget we currently have at the AAA is about $3.2 million. So $440,000 is a substantial increase, and it helps us keep pace with that population. The money would be allocated out through our RFP process, just like all the services we currently run are. Run is allocated out. It would go through the Regional Advisory Council and then up to the PPACG board. So it would be used for transportation, meals, in-home services, grab bars, probably a lot of the things we're already involved in. There would be a possibility of new program initiatives starting, but we are on the edge or have waiting lists in many of our programs right now. So basically, it would go to move those things forward.
And those are the kind of points I'm asking for.
Okay.
Thank you.
To me electronically, and I will,
I'd be happy to.
in my own words, and send them on to Senator.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll share that with all the board in
Okay.
case you run into them in any setting.
Or anybody else on this list?
Yes.
Well, actually, it helps.
Okay. That works. Member entity announcements. I took a brief time there talking to our military members and realized that I was missing Peterson when I said that. But you were taking care of business because it was kind of a point I was making, realized, oh, yeah. You sit here through a lot of this, and it doesn't seem to pertain, but all of a sudden when something does, we have your attention completely. And we talked about that. We knew that was going to be the nature of this meeting, but for you folks. But we will be happy to work with any of you to work on our agendas to be sure we're addressing your needs. You've kind of seen enough of these now to know that this is kind of what they look like. And so feel free to contact Rob, contact any of us if there's something you'd like to see come up on the agenda for discussion. We do appreciate having you here. Commissioner Clark.
When we added, and I know I don't see Councilman Knight still here, but when we added the folks from our military installations, we had talked with Rob about maybe scheduling at each meeting just a little bit of an overview about the things that your either base or the post are working on that we may need to be aware of. And maybe at each meeting, we could put that maybe under information items and just kind of get an update, especially if there are transportation issues, if there are kind of development plans that we need to know about that in our respective boards are going to impact your facilities. I think it's just really important for us to know those things and get a little bit of an idea about the economic impact of troops coming and going and changes that are being made, or just give us an overall view and understanding of what it is you all do on a regular basis. So maybe like a 10-minute presentation at each meeting, and then just focus on a different installation at each meeting unless there's something that comes up specifically for someone that you need to make us aware of, because we all talk to people and it's important that we are informed.
They're great at providing information because they never lobby.
And we know you love PowerPoint, so.
Absolutely, that's right.
Next slide.
No, I think I can certainly speak for ours, and my guess is that it would be the same. I'd be happy to do that. Of course, it may be less expansion and building than has been done in years past, given the budgets these days, military construction stuff to come by. But absolutely, it'd be a good two-way dialogue. So be happy to do that.
Marvelous. Any other member announcements?
In Teller County, we have
Yes.
a number of events throughout the year, and one of them's coming up this coming weekend is our Ice Fest in Cripple Creek. If this year's theme is cartoons, so if you'd like to see artists carve in pallet-size ice, come up this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday this weekend, and then Saturday, Sunday the following weekend. So, like to see you up there.
You think it'll be cold enough to preserve that ice through the?
The weather is forecast to preserve the ice, but still warm enough to enjoy the day.
Boy, are you part of the Chamber
Perfect.
of Commerce? Or?
Yeah, that one.
Please come.
Maybe you should move to Atlanta.
Anybody else?
I got one.
Yes, Mayor Snyder.
Carnival Parade in Two Springs on March 1st. Come on out and get some beads.
Okay. Beads. We all have our meeting schedule?
Dennis, one
Yes.
meeting to add. It's on the table. The governor's coming to town to talk about the Colorado Blueprint. He's going to be in town February 18th, 11 to 2 up at UCCS at the Lane Center. For those who want to talk about economic blueprints, there you go.
Very good. That must mean the Lane Center, the heat's turned on then.
They probably hope so.
Yeah. We are adjourned.
Early. I thought it was till 11:30. and it was
I
late,
just
right?
put 9 to noon on my calendar.
Ah.
So that way it always works out a little early.
Probably maybe late.
That's
Right.
Deputy Gear.
We're supposed to go to Denver, but I think I figured out a way to.
Civilian position. He's stable in that position.
I assume you're retired.
Well, I spent, sorry.